Oh, last week, after almost close to 20 years of not playing, I was invited to charity poker tournament here in Calgary.
You haven't
Industry
played
one,
poker in
right?
20 years?
It's been that long since Fort McMurray, basically. And so what happened was that, yeah, wholesaler said, "Hey, oh, do you want to come in?" And it was like 2 days before it actually started. And it's like, "Oh, I'll check with the family." It's like, okay, made some time. Did reasonably all right for not having played that long. I don't know how many people there were, north of 100. And I think I got to about 20 something. And
That's pretty good. Yep.
yeah, but in the middle of the night at 4 a.m., I just wake up, right? I wake up, and apparently my subconscious or my mind is going through mental calculations of hands that I played or poker hands, right?
Should
And
have
it's
played.
like, or one I should have, a couple that were good folds, right? Like open-ended straight, but like someone bet hard. It's like, what are the chances I'm actually going to hit one side of, either end of it, right? Um, and then certainly like the last hand, the hand that boots you out, right? I had the right idea, but I didn't effectively play it, right? I should have kind of done another action instead beforehand. But like
It's
I just
always an
woke up
ace
and
king for me. It's an ace king,
ace queen,
really strong pocket cards,
ace
and
queen, yeah,
ace queen. Yeah, you think that's strong, and I mean, sometimes you just have to play it strong to begin with to get people to fold before they get a
yep,
chance.
yep,
But then,
yep.
yeah, you slow play the ace king, and then
Then they
suddenly
hit a
you're up
pair of
against,
sevens.
or someone has a pair of aces, and your ace king is pretty useless then. Or whatever. Yeah, it's something
Yeah.
else. It's usually something like a really dumb hand. I mean, that's the whole idea, it seems to be, with poker.
Mm-hmm.
You want to get those people to fold before that dumb hand has any chance
Mm-hmm.
of being any
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
That's 7-2 or whatever, or
Yeah.
suddenly
Yeah. Who the heck's
two
playing
twos
that
pop
later?
up on the flop or whatever. But yeah. But yeah, so it sounds
So
like that was kind of like the charity poker event we have in Edmonton here, eh? Is it industry?
I think they're trying to
Investment
emulate
industry?
something very similar, to it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Did you tell me
And
about it a while back, or did someone
I
else? I heard
did,
there
I
was one
did
going
when I
on in
first
Calgary.
heard. When I first heard of it, I was like, "Did you know is this connected at all?" Right? And no, this one's hosted by Wellington, not Ray J.
Okay.
And but I think same idea. Other advisors, host a lot of wholesalers, people like that. So I don't know who I ended up winning, but yeah, it was okay. But like I don't need to play. So, but yeah, it was an okay evening. But did bump
Yeah.
into a few folks, people that you know as well, right? So, but yeah,
Usuals. Yep.
I didn't
Yep.
even get to talk to you about the CFA dinner, forecast dinner in Edmonton with the our
That's
former
right.
Prime
Yeah.
Minister, high level.
It was very good. Of course, I think it was very good. I'm a huge fanboy of Stephen Harper's. As always, very well articulated. He just
Yeah.
sounds insanely smart when he's talking on the stage. And a lot of the same themes that we heard when he spoke at Canaccord conferences in years past, where not pinning blame on anybody, but there certainly are certain policy areas where Canada could have made different decisions in years past and be in a better position today to either be, more self-sufficient or to be able to better supply the world with Canadian oil. You see, I don't know how much truth there is to it, but now you see these pictures on social media of the ship tanker traffic all heading to the Gulf of what was it again? The Gulf of Mexico. And they're saying, all those oil tankers are coming to America to get American oil. Well, no one's coming to Canada. Why aren't there more ways in which oil is flowing out of Canada and natural gas at the West Coast and East Coast? But it is what it is. So that was a very good presentation. I'll tell you honestly, I think the rest of the presentations at that event, a lot of people left after Stephen Harper's. They made the mistake of putting him first. They should have put him last, then everyone would have stuck around, but he probably had to leave. So yeah, lots has gone on, eh? Like news-wise, I just alluded to the big thing that's kind of still going on, the attack in Iran, the closure of the Hormuz Strait.
At some point, it's almost, it is kind of rote. I don't want to come up with the point to say like, this too shall pass. All things eventually come to pass. But how do you allay things in between? How do you build particularly for some people, irrespective of age, build that wherewithal or that scar tissue to say that, every single month, every single year, how do you appropriately filter? And maybe we don't necessarily need to kind of filter. Maybe we look at diluting, for lack of a better term, or balancing, right? What do the poison control people say? You drink something and you're not sure, drink a lot of water, right? Offset it, right?
If you had too many hot wings, drink some milk.
Sure. Take
Or
a
was that not
Gatorade
good?
after a hard night, right? Or yeah,
Yeah.
take some Pepto Bismol and then call in the morning, right? But yeah, maybe we have to accept the fact that currently at this day and age, we are inundated with media and hits, and not only hits, but like very shorts, snippets, right? A lot of things are designed for snippets now, and vignettes and shorts.
Yeah, the thing is, there's so much noise out there. And I mean, it's always said that, overanalyzing your investments, overanalyzing the markets, letting all that come to play when it comes to your investment decisions usually isn't a good idea. And we keep getting smacked over the head again and again and again by this market, especially during this bull market run that started in 2013. That seems to keep going. We keep being reminded of this. And I just pulled up the S&P 500 here, and it's unfortunate Pam Bondi was let go because the S&P is back over 7,000. It's at an all-time high today, and I don't even think we'd come to anywhere close to that anywhere soon with what's going on, because that stuff in the Strait is still not really resolved, I think. But like, to your point, we can't really ignore the noise. Like the noise, I always rail against the noise. I say ignore the noise. A lot of people out there say tune out the noise, ignore the noise. The noise being all that news out there, the geopolitics, all the kind of stuff that's going to tell you why you should abandon your investment strategy. I'll pull up a little chart in a little bit here too that kind of shows you kind of an example of that over the long term. But all that noise throughout all of history has always led investors astray. If you reacted to, I mean, even the great financial crisis, which was so terrible as it was, and yeah, our portfolios were really beaten up. But it's because of that, at its worst point, you sold everything and decided never to return because all the noise was telling you the markets are bad, stocks are bad. You really didn't do yourself a favor, because the markets are up quite a lot since then. And then all the stuff that's happened since then throughout my career, your career, Justin, you've got 2011, there was the debt ceiling noise. And again, that was the first time in my career where I saw that, where people were reacting to this. The noise was the economics in Europe, those countries that loaded up on debt during and after the financial crisis, and were having a hard time getting through that. So there's this European economic crisis. In the US, they had the debt ceiling issue, and it looked like there was a double dip recession. And everyone out there, all the news sources were saying, oh, what if there's a double dip recession? And when people worry about that, they make bad decisions. And I did have clients at that time that sold everything out of worries. But again and again, we're shown that's not a good idea. Ignore the noise. Now, the ignore the noise, it turns out it's probably not the best thing to completely ignore the noise, right? It's good to know what's going on in the world and not see everything through rose-colored glasses. And it's easy to say, if someone like me is saying ignore the noise, I'm just being ignorant. I should still pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah, don't be an ostrich. Don't stick your head in the sand.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, again, it's frankly impossible now, right? And if it's not your phone, and if it's not the headlines or the TV that's on the side, it could be the people around you as well, right?
Mm-hmm. But it was a really good article by Barry Ritholtz that I read a year ago, where he actually took his own post from, I think, a year or two before that, where he said ignore the noise, and he renamed it. The gist of it being, you have to balance out your resources. And I was just thinking, the last couple of months were the perfect example of a situation where you had two big news items competing for airwaves. One that I think probably attracted the most eyeballs because it was the most scary and concerning and whatever, and was affecting everybody's lives because of gas prices and inflation worries. And that, of course, was the military excursion, whatever you want to call it, in the Middle East. I think someone told the president it was an incursion, and he misunderstood that it was an excursion. Of course, the other big news that happened recently, which doesn't get enough praise, is obviously the space mission, the Artemis 2 mission around the moon, which, some people think, oh, well, they've been to the moon before. It's no big deal. This was the biggest space voyage. Yeah. This was the biggest space voyage of any type that any human has undertaken in over 50 years.
Yeah.
And I just did a video recently. It's going out with my next newsletter where I use this stack of sticky notes to
Post-its.
kind
Yeah.
of Post-its. No, Post-it is a brand name. Sticky notes.
Yeah.
Let's say you have a globe at the front of a classroom, and I kind of figured this is like a centimeter, a little under centimeter. If I put this on the edge on a globe between Edmonton and Calgary, that's about a centimeter. That's about 300 kilometers. Nothing's exact here. I figure on a globe, this is about 300 kilometers. And if you stick this on top of a globe flat, that is the farthest that humans have traveled from Earth in the last 54 years. Space stations, the Mir, the International Space Station, of course, the shuttle missions, they only went to about 300 kilometers. I think the farthest the shuttle ever traveled was about 300 miles when it went to repair the Hubble Space Telescope.
Okay.
But that's nothing. And then you've got this mission that just happened. When they did their first loop around the Earth, that where they kind of did their thing to reach more speed, to slingshot around the Earth, to go to the moon, even when they just made that first loop, they were 70,000 miles from the surface of the Earth. Like a massive multiple of any distance traveled into space in all those
change
years.
in magnitude. Yeah.
Exactly. And then they went all the way 250,000 miles to the moon, 400,000 kilometers. And if you really want to put that in perspective, again, all the space travel in 54 years is this little stack on a globe. What they just did, that globe is in the front of a classroom, and at the very back of the classroom, about 10, 15 meters away, is a baseball. And that's how far they traveled. Now, when you think about Mars, I looked at Mars. Mars is 200 times farther when Mars is at its closest on orbit when they're lined up. That's going to be pretty massive to get people that far. So I don't know if they're going to do that anytime soon, but that's, yeah.
It's a feel good for sure. Oddly enough, there's also a movie out there right now, right? I think it's still number one or close to number one, right? And
do you watch it?
I did not watch Project Hail Mary, but I do know people who've read the book and they spoke fondly of it. And I think also what I understand is that it's not a dystopian type of sci-fi movie, which we've seen a lot of in the past or heard of a lot in the past. And this one was a lot more optimistic, a lot more positive, call it vibes, whatever, right? But there seems to be a bit of a theme. Yeah, I mean, human ingenuity, just the scale that you talked about, that you alluded to, and what is even farther. We have telescopes and cameras that are taking pictures that are light years away, right? And it boggles my mind, right? And there was a time in my life where it was really fascinating. Apollo 13, that movie came out, and it was also, a lovely, again, another feel good sort of movie out of potential tragedy. But yeah, it boggles my mind that astrophysicists and mathematicians and can calculate the exact departure, that we can go at this speed and have a little bit of a burst, right? And so that you can thrust in this direction at this time.
How did they land just off the coast of San Diego and not go a little bit too far and crash land into California? How did they do that? I don't know.
Burn in the atmosphere,
so
right?
Perfect.
And just like to go around and get that, that force to go around the moon and then slingshot back. It just, again, the powers of human ingenuity, the ability, the potential, right? I talk with my wife a little bit about kids and AI and like what the future and what type of opportunities they may have in the future. And frankly, we don't know. There are roles and opportunities that are going to be available for our children, your nieces and nephews, right? That we can't even fathom right now. And then that's the same case that it was, 20 years ago. There's jobs, occupations, vocations that you can do now that people weren't imagining 25 years ago when, the initial, internet boom bust occurred, right? But now we're reaping some of the benefits of that stuff. And now 20 years from now, what could that be? So I think that's nice. I think it's timely. And I like that comparison that you bring up about it relative to kind of the, literally, are there going to be boots in the ground in the Middle East or what have you? Because there's always the other side of human ingenuity. And it's like, well, warfare also makes people like, drone warfare, drones, like the military industrial complex. The reason why that term exists is because a lot of things, the internet itself also came out of research that was done in that sort of world too. And I see that you're pulling up a chart, and this is a many oft repeated versions out there. And what it is all the reasons you can sell potentially. I'm paraphrasing. That's one name that you've seen charts like this for those that are on YouTube. And it's like all these crises, right? COVID was probably the biggest crisis. And then, you know what? That was not long ago. It was half a decade ago, and we're still dealing with it, but we're past it in a lot of ways, right? Every generation, every decade, every few years, something comes up as quote unquote a reason to sell or to go to the sidelines.
And again, the importance of balance. You have to balance out the bad news. It's so easy for the bad news to find you. It's at the beginning of the news hour. You constantly see people repeating whatever the president is tweeting or posting or whatever. And that kind of stuff, you don't even have to make any effort. That's getting to you. But sometimes the good news, you have to go out of your way and watch that. Like me last week, I was watching that Artemis tracker and just marveling, watching that and watching the live video on YouTube at the same time. I sometimes had my TV back there on CNN, and I saw the two news items kind of they were competing with one another. One was in the bottom quadrant while the other one was happening. This chart, I mean, this is from Dimensional Funds. They created one of these. There's one really good one, except it's getting way too small and it's too lengthy. It's one that Michael Batnick put together with Ritholtz Wealth. He tweets it out every once in a while. Also very good, shows the S&P 500 over many, many years and all the stuff, all the bad stuff that happens. But you have to remember, during this time period, this is just the bad stuff, the reasons not to invest. Nobody's talking about the reasons to invest. Human ingenuity. You know, we're getting better in every way. Smarter, wealthier, globally, fewer people in extreme poverty, less famished. When I say smarter, I mean the literacy rates are going nowhere but up. And that's not reported here. And I mean, you just look at the recent years. Yeah, Russia invades Ukraine in 2022. Some good stuff happened in 2022. I mean, again, top of mind, I can't think of anything, but I'm sure some good stuff happened. There were some SpaceX launches at this time. 2020, 2021, significant advancements in pharmaceuticals, in healthcare, really, because of what was happening, obviously, the pandemic. You know, Brexit in 2016, and lots of good stuff happened in 2016. Again, I can't think of it exactly, but I'm sure good stuff happened. It's so
we need
small
a chart.
in increments.
Reasons to be happy, or reasons to buy instead of reasons to
Maybe
sell.
I'll do that. Maybe I'll put that together.
Yeah.
I'll do some research. I'll use the AI to help me research, and we'll put that together. Reasons to buy. Just my super optimistic view of the world. But again, it pollutes our general preconceptions and judgments too. There's a book I read years ago called Factfulness. Did you ever read that by Hans Rosling?
No, I have not.
Factfulness. And then there's been a couple of different books I've read over the years giving that same perspective. And I know it's kind of in some ways it's the rose-colored vision of the world. But what Hans Rosling kind of confronted with his writing, and he also has a website, is how we have this preconception about everything. Everything like, you know, is the world becoming overpopulated? Are people starving? Is everything getting worse? And when you actually look at the statistics on some of the things, some of the actual evidence, it proves otherwise. And like, for example, one example I remember reading in Factfulness is world population growth. Is it out of control? Is population growth in Africa out of control, for example? I think it's at 1 billion people now, and it's going to be at 2 billion. And I think one of the questions in his little quiz online asks something along the lines of, what will the change be in number of children per family in Africa and in certain countries over the years? And it's only going down. And in fact, the reason why the main driving force between population growth in some of these countries that have real exploding populations, it's mostly because their healthcare has improved so much and starvation has gone down, that average life expectancies are going from 35 to something more normal. And that's the main thing behind why the population is growing faster now than a couple of decades ago. And eventually that will slow because those populations are becoming more cosmopolitan, modernized, and people are having more nuclear families, 2 kids instead of 8. So there's some good stuff. And again, you don't have to only look at that stuff, but you have to balance things out, the good and the bad, kind of. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. No,
and not just for investment, not just for the success of your investing, but just for your general mental health too. You have to balance things out. I used to watch the nightly news every night. I'd watch the 11 o'clock news until it just got bad. Like the local TV station laid people off, and just the quality of their programming became worse. I think you know which one I'm talking about.
Well, broadly.
The same thing probably happened in Calgary, but I stopped watching it. When I got more sleep now, I don't stay up till 11:30 or whatever. But also, I just don't care. Like I take in my news throughout the day. I can find it online. I don't need the news force feeding me whatever is happening in the world and making me worried about this or that. So I it's improved my, I guess, my mental health in a way, just not watching the news every night. Again, not being ignorant of news, but just being more selective on how I consume news. A better news diet, so to
I
say.
think diet for your body, diet for your brain as well. I know one theme that you've talked about past, and we've talked about this as well, whether it's through philanthropic or charitable organizations, whether you donate financially or donate with your own time. I actually I saw an article in the Wall Street Journal a day or two ago, this week, probably yesterday. And there's an ongoing kind of recurring column, and it's called Retirement Rookies. And it's penned by a former, now retired editor of the Wall Street Journal and his spouse. And they're, kind of going on this, little updates here and there about how they're dealing with retirement. And this week they came out with a piece, and they talked about how, broadly speaking, I think most people recognize the fact that social media is probably damaging or not necessarily the most positive influence on children, which is why they try to limit cell phones in schools and this and that and whatnot, right? But also, it's damaging to everybody, but it's also damaging, apparently, and very impactful to retirees. And it's because they have more time. And they don't have a structure, broadly as structured a day, and I'm talking in generalities, that they had, whether they were caring for a family, children, working at a job. And so now their day is kind of, for many, largely more unstructured. And because they're unstructured, it's so easy to pick up a phone or turn on the TV. And so the observation was that they spent all this time and effort over their lives, right, to get to retirement, to have free time. And then how are they filling that free time, that empty space in that vessel, right, of their day? It's through this. It's through this. And so, like, take a step back, and it's like, ooh, this is actually not great, right? And it could be innocent. You're like, oh, I want to learn how to cook this recipe. And all of a sudden you see something on a feed, or you see a link, and then that rabbit hole of the internet starts to happen. And an hour later you realize that you haven't even started cooking, and then and then you're watching somebody doing something from another part of the world that was actually probably AI edited, and is kind of wasting your time, right? And again,
We're
you
telling
get
you to
negative
invest
news.
in this new crypto investment, right?
Sure. Yeah, all of it, right? So it could be crypto, it could be this, right? But I thought that to be an interesting perspective.
You're onto something there. I think that the biggest doom scrollers out there are the retired class. Like, when you lose structure in your life, you're not going to your work anymore.
Yeah.
You need to fill your time with something. This is the biggest challenge I find my retired clients have is, what do you actually retire into? What do you do now with your days? I'm a huge proponent. I've talked about this before in podcasts. Join a service organization like Rotary or Lions or whatever to keep you busy, keep you engaged, to fill some of your time. But otherwise, if they're not working every day, there's nothing else filling their time. The algo feeds them what they want to see, and oftentimes that algo steers them towards the bad news, the stuff that angers them, because that's what they're watching.
And there's more of it. So more hours on a screen and more exposure, which means more negative, which means then they will dwell on points that are, as we talked about just earlier, like 10, 15 minutes ago, is that it is probably not worth the mental capacity to stress over too much. And so it ends up being kind of that slippery slope again. And so I've had recent conversations with people, and the people who are not, I'll call it doom scrolling, but are reference the news headlines a lot, tend to be the people that have more time in their day, of all ages. And it is sometimes difficult very difficult to move them away from the ledge, and so I've come to recognize that. And when I saw that article or that opinion piece, I was like, oh, you know what? Find ways. That unstructured time maybe sounds liberating, sounds intriguing, but like, all of us can fall into that trap quite easily.
Yep, I certainly do too. I mean, it is kind of getting back to the analogy with diet. Like, we'll all overeat if we don't control ourselves in some way, and we have to control ourselves when it comes to the information we take in. And don't eat too many chips, like stuff like that. You have to have some control over that. And it's like if you find you've been sitting on your phone going through one reel after another, and it's an hour's past, maybe it's time to police yourselves, just as like you probably police your kids around screen time. You kind of have to police yourself around that too. No more screen time, Marcus.
Yeah. So find the right screen time, balance it off, right? With shows like this. I'd like to, I think anybody, human ingenuity and what have you has made, and the finance industry is no different in a lot of ways in sharing that shared optimism. Because if we weren't optimistic, then we'd just be, we'd be at each other's throats, literally, and not figuratively, right? And so we are optimistic. I think we need to appreciate that and respect that. But again, I go back, just let's not be totally ignorant, right? And which is why you field these conversations. You have these, the calls. People will call in inbound and ask about this, or we'll go out and try to be proactive and say, hey, here's history, here's right now, analogies, no analogies, right? But it's hard.
It's the same type of balance you got to find. If you are a sci-fi nerd like me, you balance out your Terminator and Matrix with Star Trek.
There we go.
Positive future.
Skynet's AI is not going to become
different
Skynet?
futures. But if all you ever watch is the what's the word for the dystopic type of sci-fi, you're just going to have a really terrible outlook for the future. And the reality is most likely, and this is just based on past precedent, the most likely outcome is that things will be better in almost every way in the future. And I'm not overly optimistic. I'm just basing it on past evidence that
there will be
things
turmoil.
will be better. There will be turmoils along the way, of course.
Yeah.
The Borg could still attack Earth at some point, but we will be better off, and Picard will save us.
Yeah. Through diplomacy and through conversation and not necessarily with lasers and force. Yeah. So
Sith empires, they rise every couple hundred years, every couple thousand years, but then rebellions rise and oppose them and bring back democracy to the Republic.
Space. You know what though? No. Please. I watched Next Generation a lot after school. Oh, I think I probably saw all of them. But it's funny you talk about space and future. I was reading. I printed out and I was reading a research report, and it was about the picks and shovels for the final frontier, right? So, of course, some sell-side research is going to come out with pieces like this, and with the highly anticipated IPO of SpaceX at some point this year or very soon, next few months, it's going to become topical. Right. And so, whether it's I'm just reading the group thing, raw materials and mining, specialty materials and alloys, propulsion and fuels, electronics and semiconductors. There are ways to look at it. Oh, keep going. Components and subsystems, spacecraft and launch systems, satellite operators and services.
Space will always need plumbers. There will always be a need for space plumbers. So,
well,
that's not a job that robots will do, probably.
Funny thing is that I did not follow the Artemis nearly to the extent as you did, evidently, but I did go onto YouTube to check out the NASA feed, and I love mission control. Just like that's the engineering side of me. And
are we go for number two?
No, but the idea
for number
there
two,
is
not for number one.
Yeah, because they were talking with Capcom, right? Capsule Communications, and they were having issues with the toilet or with the waste, right? And so talking with plumbers, the little conversation I did hear at the time I logged on or I turned on the stream was that they were going through some troubleshooting with the toilet. So there you go.
And
space
Christine
plumber.
Cook brought some real life skills to the table as a space plumber.
Mm-hmm.
So
anyway, it's not good. Yeah.
Where space is concerned too, like we're talking about, what will the jobs be of the future? And again, they will be completely different. Think sci-fi again. In Star Trek, probably a very sizable portion of the population is exploring space. And I'm not saying that's anywhere near in the future, but hundreds of years from now, that could be the case, that we will have massive fleets of exploratory vessels and colonization going on all over the place, which basically is jobs that don't exist today. I mean, it's the same as if you go back hundreds of years. all the people that got into ships and colonized the New World, they left jobs behind, or maybe there were no jobs for them in the Old World. These were new jobs they created for themselves.
Again,
So,
it's just the scale and the scope of that is just it boggles my mind. I think by the next time we chat again via this medium, there'll probably be some more developments. I hopefully in an optimistic manner for all of mankind. But surely, and please don't call me Shirley, is that there will be more probably news to negative news that we'll have to kind of balance accordingly too. So
yeah, and I will create that blog post about the reasons to invest throughout maybe the last 50 years or whatever. All the good news stories. I don't think anyone's done that yet, and if they have, it's just
there's got to be something. Yeah,
just to get
get the
news
doesn't
out
catch
there.
the eyeballs nearly as much as the other one, right? So I look forward to speaking about the World Cup coming up soon. And I think it's going to be a lovely time to bring in some analogies about globalization, diversification, international perspectives, styles, right? And when you bring in 48 countries together, I think that's going to be a great time to use as a catalyst for some discussion of that nature. So, yeah, speaking
just
of sports.
Just like the Italian soccer team, every stock is it can be a good company, but eventually will become a bad company. So that's why you got to diversify across many stocks. Any stock can become the next Italy.
Tell that to your Italian friend, right? And the Azzurri, right? All right. Well, let's go Oilers, just because the flag, and we'll see playoffs soon.
Yep, it's coming up. I'm not putting my hopes too high this year, but next time we do a recording, my beard might be longer, or I might be cleanly shaven again. We'll see. The flag might be down. But
all right.
They've there's another stressor that every time this year. I was actually hoping they wouldn't make the playoffs because it's so stressful every spring, and leads to an unhealthy amount of every 2 days beer and pizza. That I wouldn't mind if there were no playoffs right now. You in Calgary, you've got it good.
No, people are trying to pick which bandwagon to jump onto, right?
Colorado's going to win it all. That team is, even though Calgary just beat them last night, when the team is healthy, they're indomitable. That there's no beating them, I think. And that's why I was actually hoping the Oilers sink into the wild card spot. We face Colorado in the first round. Just let it be over with. Rip off the Band-Aid. And if we do beat them, then we'll see what happens. I don't think we've got the team to beat.
All right, I'm not gonna put an investment analogy on that, but okay.
Totally.
All right, you know what?
Anyways,
I'll wear my
Oilers.
jersey next time. All right.
Yep. Any views discussed in this podcast are those of the presenters or any guests and not necessarily those of Canaccord Genuity Corp. Statements expressed herein are not intended to provide tax, legal, or financial advice, and under no circumstances should be construed as a solicitation to act as securities broker or dealer in any jurisdiction. All views expressed are intended for general circulation only and do not have any regard to the specific investment objectives, financial circumstances, or general needs of any individual, organization, or institution. Investing in equities is not guaranteed, values change frequently, and past performance is not an indicator of future performance. Investors cannot invest directly in an index. Index returns do not reflect any fees, expenses, or sales charges. Please do not hesitate to contact us should you want to know more about anything discussed in this podcast. CG Wealth Management is a division of Canaccord Genuity Corp., member of the Canadian Investor Protection Fund and Canadian Investment Regulatory Organization.